Hi, everybody. My name's Dan Wells. I write horror, fantasy, and science fiction, and I talk about games on the internet. Today, I'm talking about Runequest, a fantasy Bronze Age adventure game by Greg Stafford, who is one of my favorite RPG designers. I've talked about RuneQuest in the past, and I've looked at the core book, and I've looked at one of the adventure supplements that came with it. And today we're going to look at the Bestiary. This is the monster manual, essentially. And it is really, really interesting. One of the things that makes RuneQuest so compelling, and one of the primary reasons, I think, for playing RuneQuest, is that it is epic fantasy adventure that is as different from D&D as you can get, while still being epic fantasy adventure. The world, the game, everything about it does not feel familiar as a D&D clone, and so many fantasy games are. And this is its own unique thing. And I think the Bestiary is a really good illustration of how it is its own unique thing. So let's take a look at the book itself. I do have the PDF for this one. Hooray! So this is divided up into multiple sections. And let's take a look at the table of contents. So the elder races are things like elves and dwarves and dragons and stuff like that. A lot of these can be used as player options, which is really cool. And we'll take a look at some of those. Then there's chaos monsters. Chaos monsters are not good things. They're very bad news. And they're really interesting and unique. So, hooray. Then there's normal monsters, which are just kind of, the bad creatures of the world that are not based on the specific magical chaos. Giant arthropods. I love that arthropods get their own section, which is wonderful. Animals, which includes everything from the horses that you ride to the bears that you fight, things like that. Spirits. The spirit section is really exhaustive, and it has ghosts and elementals and all kinds of things. Terrors. The terrors are kind of like the chaos monsters, but much, much bigger and more threatening than that. And so, it's not just the one bat that's going to attack you. It's a bat that's got 90-meter wingspan and has an entire cult that follows it, and all kinds of just really fascinating stuff. And then a section on animals. I mean, flora, plants. The reason that I screwed that up is because in my head I'm thinking I have never seen a monster manual that delves so deeply into plants. And yes, kind of the D&D monster manual and Pathfinder and things like that, they will include some carnivorous plants, absolutely. But to have an entire section that talks about, maybe some carnivorous plants, but also what are the poisonous plants that we need to watch out for? What is this world's version of poison ivy or hemlock or something like that? Or even just wheat and corn. Where do they get their frying oil from? Where do they, what kinds of fruits do they eat in which parts of the world? This is, as is typical of Greg Stafford, this is comprehensive to the point of amazement. And so there's a whole section here that talks about, where they get their fry oil from and which parts of fruit they eat in which parts of the world. When do they harvest those fruits? All of those things are included in here. Anyway, we're actually going to start with the distribution maps because I love this. I've never seen this before in a role-playing game, and I think it is so clever and cool. So, for example, let's look at this one. Brown elves. Where are the brown elves? Well, right here. And where are the green elves? Well, there's some right here and there's some right here. And where, outside of their actual homelands, might we encounter them? This whole shaded area. And it has this for so many different types of things. This is Glorantha. This is the world where people are going to be. Dragon Pass is there in the middle somewhere. And just all of these distribution maps that show where each of the types of creatures are. I love that. Why doesn't everybody do this? Anyway, hooray for that. Let's take a look at the elder races. Now, up front, I'm going to tell you my one and only complaint about this book, which is it does not have nearly enough art in it. Maybe a quarter of the creatures in this bestiary are visually represented. And that is not good because so many of these things are so different, precisely because they are not following the stereotypical stuff. This is not the Beholder or the Blink Dog or whatever D&D monster that we've already seen 100 times. This is brand new stuff that we've never seen. And some of it is not visually described, and some of it is actually not even verbally described to the extent that I would like. So let's take a look, for example, at elves. Elves are unique in that these elves, Glorantha elves, Runequest elves, are plants. So they come in different varieties, and they are actually, they've got leaves and tree bark and made of wood and made of flowers and all these different things. And this book, and you saw me click through some of those pages, we've got so much information about where they come from, how are the seeds created, and how do they grow, and where do they grow, and then what are they like when they're born, and all of things like that. And then there's just not enough pictures. There's many different types of elves. There's green elves and brown elves and black elves and blue elves and like all these different kinds. But I don't know, for example, what this is. This doesn't actually match the description of any of those types of elves. Maybe it's a dryad? We don't get a picture of a dryad, so I have no idea. Oh, and also yellow elves, which are like jungle elves. So the game information in here is spectacular, and it's great. I just want more pictures. Black elves they come from fungus rather than from trees or flowers or something. What do they look like? I don't know. Blue elves are the ocean ones, which I guess are like made out of seaweed or something. This book doesn't really tell you that. It tells you how to use all of these creatures in your game. And it tells you here on this page how to create heroes, adventurers that are elves. But there needs to be more pictures and there needs to be more physical descriptions. Of course, cults and magic are a super important part of this game, so there's a bunch of that stuff, new spells. Baboons are their own race. Everybody knows what a baboon looks like. So there's no picture of them. Haha. There needs to be more pictures in this book, because I have to assume that their baboons are slightly different because they're considered a race of intelligent baboons, and you can like have them as characters. Anyway, beastmen include lots of different things, such as where's the picture? Did I click through it accidentally? There we go. So this is a manticore, this is a satyr, this is a duck, this is a centaur. There are duck people in Runequest, which is delightful. They're kind of like the hobbits of the world, except they're not. They're just ducks that walk, that have hands and that wear clothes and stuff. So hooray for ducks! And so the beastmen gets into that. Then there's a huge section on dragon newts, and a dragon newt isn't actually a newt in any sense. It's just a dragon, and these are far more unique than, say, a dragonborn or something like that. They go through 4 distinct stages of life. There's, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and stage 4. And then stage 5 is called an inhuman king. And I can't show you a picture of that because there's not a picture of that. The dragons are fascinating, especially because they are reborn. And they're actually reborn out of the same egg that they were born in originally. So if you kill one, a week or so later, it will just be born out of its own egg again. I don't know how this works. I wish that there was more explanation of how that worked. Like, I can totally get this kind of endless reincarnation idea. That makes sense to me. But what does the egg look like? Do we keep the eggs? Are the eggs being stored in a house? Are they being stored in a central hatchery? do all the little pieces like come together like little nano bots and reform an egg? And then everyone's like, oh, I guess Jim died. And then a week later, the egg hatches again and Jim comes out. Like, I don't know. I want more information. Everything in this book is amazing, and I want more. I have a similar issue with dwarves. Can we talk about dwarves? First we're going to talk about giants. Hooray for giants. Giants are in there. Gorillas are in there. Men and a half are interesting in that they are like these big desert people who love heat. You can see the the deleterious effects of cold on their bodies. So they're kind of fun. Anyway, and they can be adventurers as well. Moracanth are like these basically humanoid tapirs. And they're really interesting. They are fascinating in that they raise and herd humans or humanoid creatures. And they even have this like beast training thing. It says, since Moracanth are too large to ride, they're herd men. They do not have the skill of ride. They have a related skill, beast training, which okay, so they herd people, and I love the juxtaposition there. I love the reversal of this kind of intelligent version of a herd animal that now herds people instead. But that's never explained. Like, is it just humans? Are they cavemen, so they look human, but they don't have the same intelligence? It's never explained. There are no actual stats for what they herd, unless it's supposed to be just regular old people. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. So, hooray. Okay, now we get to the dwarfs. The dwarfs are really interesting as well. And hooray, we actually get some color art in here. One of the things about the dwarves is that they are created. It actually says in here that they find the concept of biological reproduction disgusting. And that's a great detail. And it says that they just create new dwarves when they need new dwarves. But it also says that they never tell people how they do this, and so nobody knows. Well, guess what, guy who wrote the book? You know, and I, as Game Master, would love to know. But that information is not in here. They make different things, and there's different kinds, like rock dwarves and lead dwarves and quicksilver dwarves and all these things. Are they actually made out of lead or iron? I don't think so. But I don't know if they're built in a forge or if they are cloned. I have no idea. I want all these answers to all these questions. And so I could go through the rest of this book and show you everything else. Oh, I do like this. The dwarves do create, like iron golems and stuff to go around and do things for them. I'm going to show you a couple of extra things. Oh, these are neat. There's merfolk that are like, they're dolphin-based rather than fish-based, which is really cool. There's a couple of different kinds, though. Anyway, let's have a look at some of the monsters. Oh, these are what trolls look like. And they're another, you can have them as adventurers. They're an elder race. We're going to skip ahead to some chaos monsters and show those off because I think they're really cool. So, for example, chaos monsters can have this random chaotic feature, and that can really change what they look like. These are brews, which are kind of like just satyrs, but super corrupted and awful. That's not exactly what they are, but that's kind of how you can think of them. There's, all these other things. They have a spell called Curse of Thed that does a random thing to you, which I love. I love all this chaos stuff. So yeah, then there's a lot of other kind of chaos monsters. I love these dragon snails. It's just delightful. Anyway, the entire book is like this, okay? None of the sections are as frustrating as the Elder Races. Because the Elder Races can be used as player characters, you're going to want much more information on them than you get. You know, so something like a dragon snail, you don't need to know every single thing about it. There's just, here you go. That's a dragon snail. Here's the stats. Your guys can fight it, right? Um, some of the things, especially the terrors and the spirits, get a lot of description. Some of them, like the animals, get far less description. Although it is worth pointing out that you know, in typical RuneQuest style, it gets deep into, for example, horses. Different types of horses, cavalry, riding, warhorse, specific horse breeds, and where they are popular and how they are different from each other. This is the kind of stuff that I love about RuneQuest, is that it gets so specific in all these things. But as I was saying, we could go through the entire book and we could look at all of that stuff, and it would basically be just me telling you about the entries and then bemoaning the lack of more detail on them. It's not as big of an issue in the other chapters as it is in the Elder Races, like I said, but that is going to be your experience with the book as well. It is a constant stream of incredible ideas that you are going to be delighted to have at your fingertips, and you're going to be cursing their names for not including more. You know, because these ideas are so great and so compelling, you're going to wish that they were a little more developed, or that they were fully described, or that there was art accompanying them. The art that's there, like you saw, is fantastic. Some of it is full color, some of it is line art, some of it looks like kind of monotone watercolor. It's gorgeous art, and it does an incredible job of bringing the world of Glorantha, the RuneQuest world, to life. And so I am going to give this, you know, if I gave out letter grades, which I don't and don't want to, I would absolutely give this an A, but then I would say, where's the rest of it? You know, this is an absolutely incredible first half of a book that I want the second half to. I want to know what the different kinds of elves look like. I want to know where the dwarves come from. I want to know how the dragon newts actually function. You can use them in your games 100%. You can there's more monsters and beasts and giant spiders and everything than you could possibly ever use in a campaign. There's so much stuff. As a monster manual, this is fantastic. And as you saw in there also, every single entry, including the ones that are like 3 sentences, have not only the full stats, but a full hit location table. So they've clearly put in the work and they've done a good job. I just want more. It is driving me nuts how much more I wish was in this book. So anyway, Glorantha RuneQuest is a very unique, very different game. It looks, feels, and plays different from any other fantasy adventure role-playing game you've ever tried. But you are going to wish that there was more. You're going to love everything that's in here. Like I said, I would give it an A if I were in the business of giving out letter grades. So be prepared for a confusing mix of delightful perfection and frustrated incompleteness. Anyway, pick it up. RuneQuest is great. You will enjoy it. The game system is very similar to Pendragon, which is one of my all-time favorite role-playing games. This is basically epic fantasy Bronze Age Pendragon with a bunch of cool extra things, and you can be a duck if you want. And so, hooray, this Bestiary is one of the better ones I've seen. I just want more. Anyway, that's it. This is great. I'm Dan Wells, and you are amazing, and I will see you later.